views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to editors and writers and newscasters and news reporters and filmmakers and videographers, photographers, and sportscasters to talk about all the things that are going on in and around the Bronx. And this evening we are thrilled. It's my old buddy, my Bronx buddy for many, many years. He's an official scorer for Major League Baseball and also an update anchor at Sirius. It is Howie Karpin. Always great to have Howie Karpin on the program. Nice to have you, sir.
Oh, great to be with you. The intro shows your passion. I love it.
Well, if you're going to be a Bronx guy and you're going to do
Right.
Bronx television, you got to go elsewhere if you don't have passion. So anyway, listen, talk about passion. You know how much we both love the game of baseball. And this was even though we're in the off season, a very interesting week in New York baseball as the New York Mets got new ownership officially, and Stephen Cohn introduced himself. I'll just tell you what I thought, and you can weigh in. I thought he hit all the right buttons. He said all the right things, and there was a genuineness about him that you usually don't get from Major League Baseball owners.
Or your previous owners.
Oh,
So,
well, that could be. Well, they loved the game. Let's be fair; they were big
yeah, they
fans.
did. But we found that we'll just touch on that for a second. We found out something that I believed over all these years, that Jeff Wilpon was the problem here. There were reports of him being the smartest guy in the room kind of stuff, and didn't take advice from the right people, and his people skills were lacking in a lot of ways. Fred was a real gentleman. If you notice, Mr. Cohen, in his opening statement and in the printed statement, gave Fred kudos, but no mention of Jeff whatsoever. And here's another thing that caught my ear yesterday when he said, none of the newspaper guys really wrote about it today in the columns I read. He said, "I don't want a guy learning on my dime."
Yes.
And that was a shot at the Brody Van Wagenen hire. He
Yes.
made some cryptic comments about the Wilpons in his answers. And there was one more where he said, you don't go out and sign a guy for 60 games. You sign, he can help you for years. Also a shot at Brody. So this is a man who was involved.
He showed a lot of good things, Howie. I mean,
Yeah.
let's move on to the future. He really showed that I think that he has an understanding of what it really takes.
Yeah, he gets it. There's no question about it. And he made you feel good if you were a Met fan. I mean, he was uplifting something. It's almost like they took a lid off a box and something escaped, and all of a sudden there's this brightness about the future for this team. So, they're going to make some moves this winter. They're going to try and contend. They have a core there to work around. Let's see what he does now. He made the first statement. Now he has to follow that up with actions.
One of the things that, as a baseball fan, even a Mets fan, I was very heartened by, he talked about sitting in the upper deck when he was a kid at Shea Stadium. You don't usually get that from baseball owners because many of them, frankly, come out of the corporate world, come out of the financial world. And to me, that means that he's been watching this. He's been frustrated when they lose. He knows what it feels like when they win. There's something really kind of I don't know what they're like. He's a roots Mets guy, and for this team in particular, with its roots in National League Baseball with the Dodgers and Giants, I think that plays very, very well in New York City.
Yeah, I wrote that in my column yesterday. He's relatable. I mean, he lived and dies just like the fans do. He suffered the same frustrations, the same, few exhilarations that they had over the years. So yeah, I mean, it comes from a unique perspective, and it's something that really makes you feel good about the team going forward.
I thought one of the questions was very interesting. Are you looking at this as a business or a hobby? And he really never said that he look, we know that he doesn't want to lose money, that he really is doing this to make money. He said it's kind of a hobby because I want the fans to love it. And listen, the guy's worth $14 billion. You know, if he has a lost leader on his baseball team or he doesn't make money right away, it's not going to be a big thing. I think he's going to really invest a lot into making it fun and for any team, and not only Mets fans. That's a really good sign. We're in this because it's enjoyable.
Yeah, and he's looking for sustained excellence, which is something that Met fans have been hoping for years. I mean, you've had these flings with success, but they never really follow it up, with sustained success. So he's looking to get that. And then, he didn't fall for the bait from some of the media guys that tried to get him to actually talk about the Wilpons. And then somebody asked him about competing with the Yankees, and you got to love what he said. He kind of like, I'm paraphrasing, we're not, I don't compete against the Yankees. We want to establish our own culture, which is something I've been saying for years. It seemed that Jeff had this obsession with the Yankees, and it got to the point where it upset the decisions they made. You're not competing. You're competing with the Yankees, but establish your own culture, your own winning culture here. And I think that's the idea.
A lot of fans right away, of course, they want to, you hear about all these players there. They want everybody. The next thing you know, the Mets are buying Mike Trout, which of course is not going to happen. So money is important. I love the idea that he talked about building from the ground up and building an organization. The most lovable players for any team. And listen, let's talk about the New York Yankees, the core four that built those late 90s championships and into the 2000s. Those were all homegrown guys, Jeter, Mariano, Posada, and Andy Pettit. I mean, if the Mets can get a consistent core of McNeil and Alonso and Conforto and obviously DeGrom, and then build around that with homegrown players, New Yorkers, man, we're going to love that, right?
Right. But in the interim, they've got to spend a little to build off this core. The Yankees got lucky with that core because he could actually extend it to a fifth with Bernie Williams, who wasn't there for every championship. The Mets have a nice core here. They do have it. I mean, they have something to build on. Now, what they're going to do, people forget that. Remember when Al Harrison ran the Mets? He was their GM. They actually spent money during that time, but they spent it unwisely. I think they're going to spend more wisely this time around. Now, on a preferential level, the big three are out there, the big three free agents, Realmuto, Bauer, and Springer. I think they should go after Springer.
You like Springer even better than that? You think they can find catching somewhere else?
I think there's some inexpensive, solid guys out there, starting with one James McCann, right, who I've been touting for years before even the Mets got Wilson Ramos. I thought they should have went in that direction. Realmuto, yes, he's the best right now. Yeah, we love to have him. Makes your team a lot better. But he also had a hip issue at the end of last year. And to me, that's a red flag for a long-term deal.
So Bauer, I mean, you don't see Trevor Bauer. I mean, fans, I read all this stuff on social media. They already laid it out. I mean, by the way, Stroman just today said that he's
right.
Going to listen, $19.5 million was a qualifying offer, is a pretty good deal. But fans are already talking about Trevor Bauer. Do you spend your money there, for example?
Okay, let's say you bring in Bauer. You have Bauer, Stroman, and DeGrom. Sounds great, right? Wonderful. Three really solid guys. You still need to build your bullpen. And to me, they're wasting Seth Lugo in the bullpen. To me, he's a starter. He should, if you bring in Bauer, he should be your four or one of your four. And then you still got to work on your bullpen. So, where are you going to spend your money? That's why I like Springer, because Springer serves a purpose. He makes it. He's a good leadoff guy. He's better center fielder than the Mets have had in years, for sure. Then you bat McNeil behind him, a left-hand hitter who makes contact. That puts you in the old school first and third, first inning setup type deal, where McNeil takes advantage because Springer is a stolen base threat. As good as McNeil is at the top, or Rosario, they're not stolen base threats like Springer is. To me, he jumpstarts the offense a little, even though you have a good offense already. But to me, if they spend 2 out of 3, yeah, then I take Bauer and Springer. I'm going in that direction. I'd rather bring in an inexpensive guy at catcher than Real Muto.
One of the things that I was, I don't want to say concerned about, but I did note is the emphasis on analytics. And of course, they want to build up their analytics. And Howie, you're an old time baseball guy. And the best example was in the World Series when Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell off the mound after 6 incredible innings. That's the kind of game you need. That game, you got to trust your ace's heart that he's going to, even if he didn't do it all year. I just hope that they don't become so crazed about analytics that they forget the human element that sometimes does win and factor in baseball.
Well, the owner addressed that directly when somebody asked him about it. Look, that if you're an old school guy like me and you, what happened in the World Series was tremendous because it brought back, how valuable a starter is, especially when he's dealing. Throw out the stats that he doesn't get guys out the third time around the order. Did you hear the Dodger comments after that game? They wanted to pop champagne that he was coming at. They weren't touching him.
Right.
That was a huge mistake in that spot. And it was because it was dictated by the numbers. You have to balance the two. The good teams are balancing both. They're not committed to one or the other.
Yeah, so that was one of the concerns. Listen, your thoughts about the World Series. I always believe the best team wins, and I felt like after the Rays won that incredible game, what was it, game 5 or game 4? With on the last play, they got 2 runs. It was one of the most incredible things you've ever seen since Bill Buckner. But the fact that they couldn't capitalize on that. That means the best team won. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Right now, the Dodgers can boast of being the best team.
Well, the Dodgers beat the Rays because they were the better team. It wasn't good that the Rays gave them the series or anything like that. They were kind of overwhelmed by the amount of talent on the Dodger team as compared to their team. They deserve a lot of credit for what they get out of what they put out on the field as a unit. But this Dodger team was incredibly loaded. And they were playing with a purpose. They weren't going to let this one get away. I had that feeling all along through the playoffs. That's why I picked Rays Dodgers before the playoffs, and I had the Dodgers in 6 and 7. In 6, but they were the much better team, and that showed finally on the field. And if I'm a Met fan, I'm happy about that because they got it out of their system now. You run into them, maybe they're more experienced, but I have this thing where, they got it out of their system, so maybe they're not as hungry the next year, although they may be because they won in a short season.
That could be. Also, let's face it, Mookie Betts is some player.
I think he's the best player in the game right now.
You saw it in the World Series. Listen, we got about a minute left. What do the Yankees need to do? They were loaded. They were sitting right there. They had everything going. They did have injuries that got in the way. How do you get them to get to the next level? What should they be looking to do this offseason?
Maybe change the catching position, and they need a couple.
I think that's true.
They need a couple of left-hand hitters. They're really lacking in left-hand hitters, and that's why they lose to teams like Tampa, who load up on those righties in the bullpen. They keep bringing them on, and they try and overmatch the percentages. That's what's happening with the Yankees. They're too right-handed. They got to have left-hand hitting. Throughout their history, they've been left-handed when they won the championships. They got to have more left-hand hitting in that lineup. That lineup is overrated.
We got to run, but you got one player in mind that you'd like to see them either pick up via trade or a free agent?
Offhand, only a bench player, and I would sign him if I'm keeping Voit, and that's Mitch Moreland.
Howie Karpin, boy, we could go for hours, you and me. And if the bars would open up, we could have a couple of beers and get that done. But right now, that's not happening. Listen, always a pleasure, and we'll look to you for guidance as we get into spring training. Thanks so much.
You got me anytime.
Great. The great Howie Karpin, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to do a up-and-coming filmmaker, actually, about a sport. He has a film on handball in the Bronx. So we'll do that right after this. Don't go away. Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We switch gears and we're going to do films right now. In particular, we're going to talk about a film that's about a sport that people in the Bronx play. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but let's welcome in producer Zef Cota. Nice to have you back on the show, Zef.
Great to see you, Gary. Always a pleasure to be here.
And Zef brought along director Mike Morales. Nice to have you with us, Mike.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, it's good to have you. Zef, let's get started. So the subject of this film that you guys are working on is
Handball.
handball. As I think you know, I have played not very well, but I'm the guy that everybody says, "Oh, let me play that guy." But go ahead, Zef. Tell me a little bit about why a film about handball in the Bronx.
Well, I was really intrigued by when I would actually meet up with Mike because I was mentoring him as his film mentor, and we were working on various other projects. And from time to time, he's like, "Okay, I got to go somewhere at 3:00." And I'm like, "Well, what are you doing at 3:00?" Then he sort of reluctantly told me that he was playing handball. Well, and you know, as a filmmaker, I'm always curious. So I was like, "Well, that's kind of interesting. Let's unpack that for a minute." And it turned out he's actually a pretty good player, and you know, he's even traveled to other countries to play handball and is pretty connected to many A-level players in New York City. And so then I encouraged him to direct his first documentary about handball.
About something that he's passionate about, which generally works out. Especially, it's one thing if you're an experienced, director, and you okay, we're going to make a film about this. But if he's passionate about it and understands it, probably will make for a better, a better product. Zef, just to rewind what you had said, you say you're his mentor. For people who don't know, we've had you on the show before. What does that mean, and what are you doing as a film mentor in the Bronx?
So I mentor students professionally through a program that's based in Los Angeles called Film Connections, which it's unlike a traditional film school. It actually pairs film students with working professionals in the field that actually want to get practical knowledge of production and working on sets and get actual experience. And so that's how I started working with Mike.
Mike, among others, you brought others onto the program. So, Mike, let's just start with you about handball. So, you've played handball since you were yay big. I mean, talk to me about your experience with handball, and then we'll talk about the film.
Yeah, I've been playing since I was like 14 years old until now. I'm 25 now, so about almost a decade in. And I really I wanted to do something like this, but I never had anyone who had my back. So, I had Zef teaching me and kind of pushed me to do it. So,
and so when you say do something like this, you mean make a film in particular?
yes, make a documentary to attempt to make the sport go pro.
What I know that's one of your objectives. What about the game that you think is interesting, exciting, that has compelled you to play it? I guess now we can count the last 11 years.
Yeah. So it's just something about hitting that ball, man. It's like
Really?
you really, yeah. It's just something like really, I guess I want to say really empowering. Empowering.
And
You really,
the one-to-one competition. Now, if you're a wrestler, you wrestle somebody and you're right on them. But if you're in handball, you're feet away, inches away from your opponent, right?
yeah, you can't really. There's no physical contact in that sport. It's probably the safest sport I've ever played. And it's kind of a mixture of boxing and tennis. In a sense of like making your opponent run side to side and kind of beating on him, but instead of actually hitting him, hitting the ball and making plays.
It's exciting. Where do you play in the Bronx? I mean, I know that there's those beautiful walls in Van Cortlandt Park. Orchard Beach has walls. I mean, they're all over the place. I'm curious about where your quote unquote home base would be.
My home base would be in Brooklyn, where I
Oh,
play. Yes, yes. I actually play in I originated there in Brooklyn.
all right.
I play at a park named 49. It was a pretty popular park back in the day. And it
Ze-
was very,
Zef, we got to get some Bronx guys and kick his, you know what?
yeah.
That's another that's
I
another story because people in the Bronx really view handball as a Bronx thing. I mean, I
yeah.
know it's out there in Brooklyn. Now, just talk about your desire to have it go pro. You mentioned that. Why? Why? What do you think?
Well, I feel like a lot of people deserve it. They put their hearts and dedication in their life into the sport, and just to see it all just go to waste, it kind of just sucks because there's so much potential and talent in these individuals. So
Boy, he talks like a Bronx guy. If anybody ever does. Jeff, talk to me about that. We're going to roll a clip of some of the footage, right? This is not even a full trailer. But Zeph, talk about the challenges of making this particular type of film.
Well, the challenge I think in making a documentary in general is that there could be so much content, so it's about cherry picking exactly what you need versus a fiction short film or feature film where you kind of predetermine ahead of time what you're going to need. So, and especially there's so many great handball players throughout New York City, men and women that are really great A-level players, but it's hard to I guess the challenge was just finding the best cross section of people that would really represent the sport, and then especially trying to cover tournaments during this time.
Right. Let's roll some of the footage. Now, this is it's still in production. This is a first look. Does the film have a name yet? I don't know, Mike or somebody wants to mention the name.
we both decided on Shoot to Kill.
Shoot to
Name
Kill.
of it. Yeah.
Happily, it's only with a ball about this big. That's
Yeah.
all right. Well, so here it is, Shoot to Kill, but it's really about handball, and the footage is great. So you're going to enjoy that right now. Let's take a quick look. Congratulations on the beginnings of it. Mike, making a film, what have you learned from Zeph and from this process about, how to do this?
I've learned how to really interview people well, and who to pick for the job. I needed some people who were really passionate about the sport, very intellectual about the sport, and not everyone has those kind of
Those attributes.
attributes. Yes.
That's why they hire me to fill in the the work.
Yeah. I needed that.
And what's your expectation about when we're going to be done? When can you come back and we'll say, oh wow, now it's done? Is this going to take a while? Or of course we're coming to winter. It's not a great handball season. Tell me where the production is at.
It's about done. We're kind of just gonna edit everything up and put it together now. But I mean, handball is I think it's all season round, man. They got indoor courts where they go in. Yeah, they
Well, of
have
course,
one.
yes. I was thinking, of course, about our parks, but you're right. Of course, there's plenty of. You play indoors?
Yeah, I play all winter long. Yes, whenever I have the chance.
And no, I understand you've traveled. Is the sport popular elsewhere, or is it a case of New York City and the Bronx bringing it to somewhere else?
No, it's been popular all over the world. I think just about the same time as it was here in New York. Everyone plays it. Spain, Dublin,
And
the UK.
I really want to ask this question, and it's just me because I'm a New York boy and a Bronx boy. Do we have the best players, or do you find there are really good players elsewhere?
Yeah, we definitely do have the best players here in the Bronx. I'd say.
I love that. I love, Zef knows that's how I feel about our hometown all the time. We're the champs.
Absolutely.
Zef, I'm going to kind of ask you the same question in terms of what have you learned about doing? I know that you've done a lot of films and you've been a mentor, but what has this taught you in your craft of being a producer and helping to mentor young people?
Well, it's so interesting. It's just so interesting finding out about something that is literally like a way of life. I mean, um,
Let me just interject. It's a way of life that nobody knows it's a way of life. And
right,
there are
exactly.
people who play it religiously, whether it be Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, and this is what they do. I know I've experienced that. I mean, BronxNet has done some play-by-play for these things, and I've been out there, and people live for it and live to it, and they bring their chairs and they sit around the courts, and nobody knows. Maybe to part of it, I guess that's the beauty of what this film is about.
Exactly. And it's actually kind of funny. I have to tell a quick story because I had somebody coming to my house to, now I've built my home studio. I'm pretty much working from home, but I had a repairman coming to fix the washing machine. And he, I just asked him where he's from. He's like, "Oh, I'm from the Bronx." I'm like, "Get out of here. Which part?" And then, he's like, "Oh, well, I used to play handball around Arthur Avenue." I'm like, "Look, we're actually in post-production right now on a handball documentary." And I was showing him some of the footage, and him and Mike knew people in common. He knew people that are featured inside the documentary, and it just goes to show you how much of a way of life it is. And so that's something that I learned about handball in general. Which is pretty incredible.
All right, so you'll get back to us when the thing is when the thing is ready to go, when Shoot to Kill is ready to go.
Absolutely.
All right, and Mike, congratulations. Have you already thought about the second film that you're going to work on, or we're not sure yet?
Not nothing handball wise, but I do have some plans in the future
All
for
right. Well,
other.
you have a home here on BronxNet Television and the Bronx Buzz. Zef Cota and Mike Morales, congratulations on the work, and we love having you on the program to talk about what you're doing.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Gary.
guys. Thank you so much.
Folks, that's it for the Bronx Buzz. This week on Bronx Talk, different gears than this. We're going to talk about the opioid problem in the Bronx. And thanks so much to our wonderful producer, Rebecca Hemick, and our production assistant is Sienna Jones. We'll see you around town. Good night.